When I come across an editing video that actually teaches me something, I love it. The only problem is it's kinda rare, because the actual value is usually caught between fluff and a slow pace. So I'm gonna teach you this, and this, and this, and this, and this. No muss, no fluff, just tips, tricks, tools, and techniques to level up your video quality no matter how much you know or what software you use. Let's get to the good stuff. We're going to start with a simple mask and blending mode adjustment. Now, while most of the tools and techniques that I'll talk about are called the same thing across all of the editing softwares, I'm still going to put them on screen so you know what to search for just in case. So, like I just said, mask and blending mode. Alright, this is what we're looking to achieve. So I've got my raw footage here. I'm just going to drag the stock footage, physics formula, whatever, and I'm just going to cut off the edge, delete the remainder. And there we go. It's over it. We can't see me, so what we got to do is we have to draw a mask. Now, I don't know where to draw it because I can't see me, so I'm going to make this stock footage a little bit transparent by dropping it to 50% opacity. There, now I know where to draw it. Okay, so I've got my physics formula stock footage selected. I'm going to do a freehand mask. Start here around my hand. It doesn't need to be perfect. Then I want to go behind my chair, because I want it to seem like it's coming from the back of the room. And then we'll go behind this fan here. And then we will connect it on the bottom. Okay, so I have achieved basically the exact opposite of what I was looking to do, but that's alright, because we have this invert mask button here, and when I hit it, bam, the mask goes where I wanted it to. So let me just go ahead and make this fully opaque, 100% opacity. And now, this is the mask. We've got two problems, okay? One is the black background, and then the other is the sharp edge. Let's take care of the background first. This is where blend mode comes into play. Now, there are several different blend modes, and blend modes essentially just blend two pieces of footage together. So, I never know which one I really want to use until I scroll through them all, but I do know that screen is the one that removes black. So I'm just going to hit screen, and sure enough, the black is gone, and the white is remaining, okay? Now, we have the problem of the hard edge. As you can see when I hit play, it looks really weird. You can see the shape around my head. So now what I want to do is soften the edge, which is called feathering. So I'll go to mask feather here, and I will drag it up until I see that edge turn into something a little more palatable. Alright, let me click down here. Okay, now I don't see that edge, really, at all. And we're going to hit play and see what it looks like. Cool. That's exactly what we want. Perfect. Alright, that's what we were looking to achieve. So now we have to do this little zoom in thing. And I could animate both of the clips, but let's just make it simple. I'm going to select these, and then I'm going to nest. Now, nesting basically takes whatever you select, and it combines it down into one clip. But the cool thing about nesting is, if you double click the clip, it'll take you to the things that you combined. So it's not permanent. You can always go back and change things if you'd like. Now all I gotta do is just animate the nest, and it'll affect everything inside the nest. So I'm just gonna enter a keyframe at the beginning of it at 100, and then at the end of it I'm gonna do like 110. So I'll hit enter and then drag that to the end, and when we hit play we should have a little bit of a zoom. Nice. So everything we just did, I tend to use a lot, especially when I'm trying to get a viewer to focus in a certain area. So this is what we're going to make next. Alright, so I've got my picture here. It's a little off center. Let me just turn on my guidelines, and then I will drag it to the center. It's a little smaller than the actual video, so let me just scale up to like 120. Okay, that looks good. Alright, turn my guide off. Now I need to duplicate this footage. I'm just going to hold Alt and drag up. In every software, I'm pretty sure if you hold Alt and drag, it'll duplicate. But if it doesn't, you can just as easily copy and paste. Alright, this top one I want to blur. So I'm just going to go find a blur. And I'll find Gaussian blur. There it is. I'll drag it onto the footage. And then when I increase blur to like 30, everything gets blurry. Okay, so I want the center thumbnail to be clear while everything else gets blurry, so I need to draw a mask like we just did. And once I complete this mask, it's going to do the same thing that happened before, which is the exact opposite of what we want to achieve. it's going to blur the wrong side. So let me just go over to the mask and invert it. And now we have everything else that's blurry. Okay, cool. So we've got this blur, and we don't want it to be immediately blurry. So when I hit play, it just looks like a picture with stuff blurred out. We actually want the blur to transition in. So we need to, I guess it can stop right there. We need to insert a keyframe at 30% blurriness, which is already set, and then back all the way up to 0% blurriness, and that would be the first keyframe. So now when I hit play, we've got 0 to 30% blurriness. Right? It's just like animating the scale when we zoomed in, except it's done on this blurriness effect. All right, so when I hit this, it looks fine. It does focus on it a little bit, but I would also like the blurry areas to darken a little bit. So I'm going to add some color effects. Let me just drag in Lumetri color here. FYI, for those Premiere users, if you just go to the Lumetri color panel and you mess with any of these knobs, it adds the color effect to the clip automatically. Just a little tip for you. All right, so we're going to go into basic correction, and I want it to get dark at the same pace that it gets blurry. So at the beginning, we're going to start with no changes, which is 0% exposure. And then I'm going to go to the end keyframe of the blurriness, and I'm going to go to exposure and hit -2. And when I hit enter, it'll create the keyframe, and everything that's blurry should also turn dark. And it did. Now, when I hit play, it will get blurry and it will get dark. Just like that. Okay, now I'm feeling a lot more focused on the middle thumbnail, but I would like it to zoom in. So we're just going to do the exact same thing we did before, which is select these two, right click, nest, and now we have these clips combined. And we're going to animate it the same way. Just hit 100% scale at the beginning, and then at the end we're going to do 100, let's do 115. And there, now it'll zoom in. Let me drag that to the end, and when we go back to the beginning and hit play, it will be real focused. Yeah, like that. Okay, now I use this same technique to create depth, like this. Okay, so that's what we're gonna make, all right? So first I need to take a couple images and remove their backgrounds. Okay, so first I'm gonna take these two images of these dudes and I'm gonna remove their background. So I need to open Photoshop for that, but there are plenty of tools online like remove.bg where you can just drag it in and remove the background and export it as a PNG, which is a transparent image. Okay, so I've got these two dudes. I'm gonna drag one in, and then I'm going to drag the other in, and they're probably way bigger than the actual video, so I need to scale them down a little bit. Alright, so what I want them to do is I want them to go off screen, and I want them to get closer like the camera is moving past them. So I'm going to animate this guy's position, and he is going to go down here. And then I need to go back and animate his scale. So I'm going to start his scale where it is, and then I'm going to make him a little bit bigger. Let's go like 42, and I want his head to be like right here, I guess. Okay, and then as for the other guy, we're gonna do the same thing. So we need to blur them and darken them like we did before. So all we gotta do is select them and nest, and we will do that. Let me go get a blur real quick. Starting at 0, and then we're gonna blur up to like 50. And then I will add the color to make it darker. So we'll start exposure at 0, drag it back to the beginning, and then we'll go -3. So when we play, these guys get blurry, they get dark, and you know what? I want them to be a little bit blurrier. So let's go with like 60 blurriness. Let's go with 70 blurriness. Okay, this is fine. Now we need to add the backgrounds to bring focus to the lady. So we need to go get her footage real quick. I know I got that stock footage in here somewhere. There she is. Okay. I'm going to drag her in, and of course we have a problem. There's a blue background. All right, but that's really easy to get rid of with something called keying. So I have this stock footage of this mean lady, and I'm going to drag her in. And the big problem is she has a blue background, but we're going to fix that. So let's just make her a little bit smaller. not that small. That's just, I don't know, 50%. Just to get the idea, 50%, just so we can remove that blue background first. And the way that we do that is through something called keying. In Premiere, I use Ultra Key, but it's basically the same thing as removing a green screen or whatever. I just type Ultra, drag it in, and then the key color, I'm just going to select this blue, and bam, she's gone. Okay. Actually, there's a bunch of noise down here. I'm going to set it to aggressive, and that should do it. Okay, cool. Now, she's in front of the guys. That's a problem. We need her in the background. Now, they're all clear right now, and that kind of ruins the depth effect, but we will fix that here in a minute. Let me just go ahead and hide these guys, and we are going to put her behind a desk. All right, here is the picture of the desk. Okay, it's on top, so we need to move her above it. So we have this desk. Let me just lower it slightly so I can give her some room, and I want to center the chair. Let me just hide her real quick. Turn on my guide. All right, we'll make the chair in the center, so she will be sitting in the chair in the center. Then we'll bring her back in, and I want to put her there. We're going to scale her down. Let's do like 35, and we will drop her in the spot. All right, her head's cut off. Let's lower her a little bit, and let's lower the desk a little bit. Let's put her right on the eye line, and we will lower the desk, and that looks good enough to me. And so we need to affect the desk and her at the same time, so we're just going to nest her clip and the desk together. Nest, and now when we zoom in on her, it's going to affect both. Now, we can go ahead and bring these guys back in, and they will go on top of this situation, and as they fade out, she will get more clear. So she has to start blurry while they're clear, and that creates the depth effect. So we're just going to drag that blur in, and she starts blurry, and we're going to start her at like 50. Yeah, okay. Now, she also has to start dark. But first, let's go ahead and keyframe the blurriness. So she starts blurry, and when they are super blurry at the end, she will be super clear. Cool? All right, so now we have this depth effect, and the only thing that we're missing is that she needs to be coming closer, and she needs to start dark and get lighter. So let's go ahead and do that. We will just add the lumetri color here. We'll start at like -4 and set that as the first keyframe, and then at the end keyframe, which we're already at now, we will set it as 0. Cool. Okay, so now when we go back to the first frame, she should be dark, she should be blurry, they should be bright and clear. So they're coming closer to the camera, she's staying in the same spot, we just need to move her closer, and then we're finished. So we're just going to do that. Going to scale up the nest starting at 100. We'll scale it up a little bit closer to like 120. Okay, it works. She comes closer, but she also like gets taller, and her eyes are removed from the eye line, which I usually keep eyes at this top third guideline. So while we scale her up, we should also move the location just a little bit lower. So we'll start the location where it is because it started on the eye line, and then at the very last keyframe, we'll just slide her down a little bit. So now, when we play the animation, her eyes stay sort of in the same area. There she is. She becomes clear. Her eyes kind of stay in the same area. She kind of moves down a little bit, but it's all good. But yeah, we're done with this. It starts, and there's this depth effect that we've created. They get blurry. She gets clear. They get darker. She gets brighter. It looks really good. When I first did this clip, I did it for a video on my personal channel, and so I did take a little bit more time to make sure it looked the way that I wanted it to. But that's how you create the depth effect. So using everything that we just learned, we're going to turn me into this. And it's actually a lot simpler than you'd think. So we've got our footage here, and we're just going to go ahead and duplicate it, hold Alt and drag up, or copy and paste, whatever you prefer, and we are going to draw a mask around my face. Let's do it where my face gets really red. Okay, so that's kind of the shape I want to go for. Just select stupid face here. And I only want it to affect my face, so let me just lower this off the headband a little bit. And then all we gotta do is mess with the color. Lumetri color, let's do curves, and we're just gonna increase the saturation of red. So I'm just gonna create a couple bumps here. There's 1, 2, 3, and then I can increase this redness a bit. Okay, it's not exactly as red as I want it to be. Usually when I'm doing stuff like this, I'll just experiment until something works. See, I'm getting too much orange. I need more red, you know what I'm saying? Okay. I think that would be okay, but the problem is it's not on my face completely. Let's go over here and do this. Oh, okay, so if I go and mess with the hue, it kind of makes it a lot more red. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, so I have made a mask, and of course, if I hide the layer under it, which is just the regular footage, we have the masked version where I've adjusted the color on it. As you can see right here, I've just bumped up the saturation, and this kind of looks dangerously red, so we will keep it there. Okay, I don't like this little corner here. I'm going to drag that in a little bit, and now all we got to do is kind of feather it to make it easier so it's not as cut off. To make it softer on the edge, because now you can see the edge of this red against my regular skin, and that just means that we need to feather it, soften that edge a little bit. So we'll do that, go ahead and deselect, and as you can see, it looks a little more natural. Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning, and now we need to kind of animate the color to come in. So when we go back to the beginning, we see the red face, and we don't want it to be there yet. We want it to kind of fade in. So all we got to do is start the mask at 0% opacity and then increase it, which we'll just animate it through keyframes, to 100% capacity. Opacity, not capacity. All right, so we'll start at 0% opacity. We'll just drag it all the way down, and you can see the mask disappeared. We'll hit the keyframe, and then at the end, we will increase up to 100. That's not the end, but I'll just take this keyframe and drag it. So now when we hit play, we can see that it starts to get more and more red, and yeah, we have achieved the goal. Now, what we're gonna do is we're going to nest it and do the little zoom in thing. So let's just start at 100%, and then we're gonna go to, I don't know, 150. Actually, 200. Now, my head is too high, so we have to adjust the position a little bit. There are better ways to do this, but this is like a super simple way. I usually use something called adjustment layers, which do exist in every software. And you know what? I don't think I'll do a whole lot of adjustment layer stuff in this one, but if you're getting stuff out of this video, then just leave a comment and I'll do another. I'll cover quick ways I can just mix audio. I'll cover how I do color grading, adjustment layers. Like, we can get into more advanced stuff if you're getting something from this. So I'm totally cool with that. Anyway, the second keyframe we just need to drag down here so I am on screen. And when we start away, we're zooming into my face, and we'll just drag these two keyframes all the way to the end. So when we hit play, we are zooming into me. So if we go back to the beginning and we hit play, we have our zoom and we have my face getting super red. There is a lot you can do with masking. And one of the coolest things you can do with masking is, let me show ya. What's up, dude? Not much, man. How are you? I'm good. I'm really, really good, because this is really easy to do. Let me show you how. The hard part is pacing and getting the timing between you talking to yourself to sound naturally, but I already went through the clips and I found the two that would work together. So we have this first one where I say, "What's up, dude?" And then we have this second one where I'm on the other side. And so from what we've talked about before, you can imagine that just masking out one of these dudes and putting them over top the other, it would work just fine. And it would, but there is an easier way. So I'm just gonna put these two on top of each other, and so I'm only going to see the one that's on top, and I am going to crop it instead. And so when you crop something, you crop it, you know, you take the edge and go inward. So if I were to crop left over, then we have two Johns. Now, cameras can't stay consistent constantly. That was a lot of C's. Anyway, when I zoom in, you can kind of see where the line is. And how do we soften that line? Well, we already learned by feathering. And crop has edge feather. It's a feature there. I'll just set it to like 80. And when I do that, you can't see the line anymore because it's soft now, as you can see. So when I hide the layer under it, you can see this really soft edge. I could make it even softer, but when I turn on the layer below it, then we have a little bit of an issue. So I'll go out and I'll enable it again, and now we have these two clips that work together. What's up, dude? Not much, man. How are you? I'm good. Simple enough. It's kind of funny when you extend it because I'm like, okay, that's the end of that. And the crop line becomes immediately obvious. Check it out.
This is really
End of
easy
that.
to do.
As you can see, I'm like cut in half now. Anyway, what if you can't cut right down the middle of the room? I mean, it's obviously easy to have one person over here and one person over here, and then that's where the crop line is. But what if John was standing in front of another John? What would you do? Could you mask it? You could, but you'd have to cut like perfectly around the front John, and if that front John ever moved, you would have to animate the mask, and it would end up taking forever. So instead, you got to use rotoscoping. Now, rotoscoping exists in every software. For Premiere, it actually exists in After Effects, which is linked to Premiere. In DaVinci, it's called Magic Mask. Anyway, let me show you an example of a rotoscope working, and then we're gonna make one work ourselves. Okay, here is what we're gonna make. That video hit 1.1 million views, giving them a 52 times outlier. Now, as you can see, John crawls in the background and does the little X thing, and you can see on my shoulder that the lines are fairly perfect, I would say. They're a little harshly cut, but when you zoom all the way out, you don't notice that. So if you hide the back layer, this is what you see. And it is just a rotoscoped version of me with the numbers on top. I'll just go ahead and hide those numbers as well. And this is what we're going to end up with once we rotoscope it. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot of work, but let me start with the original footage, and we will just follow it step by step. Here is the original footage. And I'm going to right click, I'm going to do replace with After Effects composition, and I'm going to show you how a rotoscope works. Okay, so now I am in After Effects and I've got my rotoscope brush thing, and I'm just going to draw over myself. And I try to do it in one go. The more brush strokes you make in a rotoscope, the more data it has to process, and it can be a real pain in the butt to export once you're done. So I try to get as much in the first go as I can, and sometimes it'll select stuff that isn't what you want selected, and you'll have to do a roto removal brush like this. Okay, see how it's selected this thing in the background? I hold Alt and now I select that and it'll get rid of it. In whatever software you use, there is a way to remove your roto data. And like I said, I try to get it all in one go, so now all it has to do is process two strokes instead of doing one side and then the other. That would just be more data. So this is close enough. I'm missing a little edge here of my face, and that ought to do. Now, there are a couple ways to show exactly what you have selected. This is one way. I just kind of double click the red button down here. Don't know what it does, but it'll show me what I've got selected. And that one does it too, I guess. Anyway, all right, so I'm good with this. If I hit play, it'll start to like process a little bit of data, and it'll show me very, very slowly what I have selected. All right, it looks pretty good to me. Now that I have it selected, I'm going to export it, but just so you know, whatever software you're using, you should have a lot of options when you rotoscope. There should be a feathering option where you soften the edges. Like what I said before, this edge was like really harsh, and it could have been softer. If I take my feather from 5 and put it at 20, you'll see the edge. It just kind of softens it a little bit. Maybe we'll just soften it a tiny bit. Contrast, the higher it is, the sharper your edge will be, as you can see. You can shift the edge in, you can shift the edge outward. Those are some of the options in After Effects. Depending on what you use, they might be a little bit different. But yeah, I'm good with the way this looks, so we're just going to go ahead and export it. There are a couple ways to do this in After Effects. I have my own way that I do it. I could save it and just leave it in Premiere since they're both linked. It does read data from After Effects, but it slows things down. I like to actually export this as a transparent video and drag it into Premiere. It just makes things faster. So I'm going to add to render queue, do the output to... let's just do the desktop for now. And then to make it transparent, I need to change the format to QuickTime, and then the channels to RGB plus alpha. And that way, when I export it, it will be transparent. Okay, let me just render it. Okay, there we go, it's done. And we are back. Let me unhide the bottom layer, which is the one where I'm crawling around. Gonna drag the rotoscope in, and now we have a John in front of another John doing stuff in the background. So yeah, you can do a lot of stuff with rotoscoping, and if you don't have the software that I use or an editing software, there are tools online to rotoscope, and with the advancement of AI, rotoscoping is just gonna get faster and faster and easier. It's crazy, but that is rotoscoping, okay? It's like a more advanced mask that animates itself and tracks edges and moves along with the item that you want to isolate. So yeah, like I said before, if you got something from this video, then just let me know in the comments and I'll do another one. I'll break down all kinds of techniques that I use in this video. Now, just a warning, this video is kind of insane. It was kind of before I learned how to hold myself back in editing, but if there's anything in it that you want me to break down, by all means, let me know in the comments and I will see you in the next one.